Sam, you're never going to guess what's happened.
Oh no, what?
Most of the video for episode 7 didn't record, so we've only got Mark's interview on video.
Oh, how annoying. I have to admit, I'm a bit gutted because I was looking extra fabulous on that day as well. But you know what? There is like 6 planets in retrograde at the moment, so no wonder technology is going absolutely manic.
Such a shame that the world won't see your outfit, but luckily the audio is all good, so for those who are watching the video, you can still get the great content. You just unfortunately don't get to see us. We hope that you enjoy this episode. So before we get started, please note that this episode contains discussions of suicidal thoughts, which some people may find distressing. Hi, I'm Sophie Marie Odom, Lifestyle Magazine's editor.
I'm Samantha Eng, broadcaster and disability rights campaigner, and welcome to the final episodes of this season of the Motability Lifestyle Pod. Oh, I'm shedding a tear. In this podcast, we invite our friends from the disability community into the studio for a conversation about, well, how we can all live our best life. And particularly, when we're navigating a disabling world.
Today, we are joined by the former Royal Marines Commando Mark Ormrod. While deployed in Afghanistan in 2007, Mark lost both legs and an arm due to an explosion. Since then, he's been on a mission to spread a message of positivity and resilience and continues to challenge himself. He has a long list of remarkable achievements. Hi Sam, how are you?
I'm good, my darling. I'm a bit tearful.
I know.
I'm a bit sad. I'm a bit tristes. We've had a good run, haven't we?
We have. Today is the last episode of season 1.
Season 1, but I do feel like we're having a mini breakup. You know, like when you're on a break. It's like, I really still care for you. I still love you, but I need a break.
I need some time. I need some tiny break. But no, it has been such a great series. I hope all our listeners agree. And we've got a little cup of something here to...
a little drinky poos.
Yes, to cheers to an excellent season 1. So, on to our last reasons to be cheerful for this season. Our first is Cool Crutches and Walking Sticks launches the UK's first walking aid recycling scheme.
Oh, wow.
So what they'll do is they'll send refurbished aids to those in need globally. And I was just thinking, this links back to our episode 1 with James. Do you remember our episode with James Freeman? And he was talking about when he was at the Paralympics and obviously he got talking with people from other countries and he was saying like he realised how lucky he's got it really in the UK that he is given mobility aids, whereas in some parts of the world they're not given freely.
And one of the reasons is because I've looked into this. My mum is a nurse and she works in residential care, and they get like Zimmer frames and like abundance of mobility aids. And she's like, so wasteful because sadly, if someone passes away, like what do you do with it? And one of the reasons is obviously health and safety, and it costs too much for an occupational therapist to come out and say whether that is actually safe or not. I mean, it's a joke. Anywho. My friend who works for Calais with refugees, he used to go around and pick up things. So we actually just gave him, it sounds really bad, but we gave him a lot of wheelchairs and mobility aids because we don't think about it. There may be people who are disabled who have to abandon their wheelchairs when they're crossing the channel. So I'm so glad that it's working in a way that suits everyone, and hopefully that will be something that we can...
It should be a universal thing.
Universal.
Yeah, I agree.
Exactly.
I agree. So the company Cool Crutches, which is a walking aid company, is working with PhysioNet, which is a UK-based charity dedicated to redistributing unwanted mobility aids. And they found as well that there was a WHO study that found that there's like millions. I haven't got exact numbers to hand. There was a lot of people in need of mobility aids worldwide. So how it works is you purchase a new walking stick or crutches from Cool Crutches and Walking Sticks, and then the company will send the necessary packaging for you to pack up and send your old walking aid, and then it will be hand delivered to the team of volunteers at PhysioNet. If you're interested in this scheme, then you just need to visit coolcrutches.com, and there's all the information on the website.
So what next? What else have we got? News.
Accessible rambling. Are you a rambler? Do you like a rambler? Do you like going walking?
Absolutely not. No, actually, I'm going to be moving somewhere where I can do a bit more rambling.
Yes.
Moving back to the northwest, and we have got beautiful places to ramble.
Yes. Is Cumbria far from you? Is it quite far?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
I
So
mean,
this-
it's up there.
yeah, it's,
but
it's still up north, but yeah, still a bit far, because this is the first ever walking guidebook for wheelchair users published in Britain, and it's called Pathfinder Lake District and Cumbria: Accessible Routes for All. It's by Ordnance Survey, and it's a walking guidebook designed for wheelchair users.
That.
And it showcases 38 walks in the Lake District National Park, the Cumbrian Solway Coast, and sections of Hadrian's Wall. So every route has been meticulously crafted to ensure a seamless experience.
Love it.
It's categorized by accessibility ratings: easy, moderate, challenging, and very challenging. And it's written by Mike Routledge, who lives in and works in Cumbria, so he's very well versed. He's a volunteer at Calvert Trust, a specialist outdoor residential centre offering a range of accessible activity breaks for people with disabilities. And he said the book aims to remove barriers, install confidence, and encourage wheelchair users who have been daunted by the prospect of venturing off the beaten track to enjoy the beauty and freedom that they felt they couldn't experience before.
You know, the Lake District, I spent a lot of my childhood there. Absolutely stunning. I think it's Hadrian's Wall. I feel like I've just had a flashback to my high school class. But, you know, just to make sure you buy a lot of Kendall mint cake. Because that's the only reason you go rambling. It's for the Kendall mint cake.
Cake.
Yeah.
Always cake.
Well, no, Kendall mint cake is like mint, isn't it? It's covered in chocolate. It's to give ramblers or hikers that energy boost. But if you're not hiking or walking, then it just gives you a sugar rush. Ultimately, that's all I remember.
I'm all for a sugar rush. If you are interested in this book, you can get a copy at shop.ordnancesurvey.co.uk.
Raw.
Our guest today is Mark Ormrod MBE. Mark is a former Royal Marines commando. He was 4 months into a tour of duty in Afghanistan when on Christmas Eve 2007 he stepped on an explosive device which blew up in front of him. He was the UK's first triple amputee to survive the Afghanistan conflict. Now he is a motivational speaker, author and athlete. He won numerous medals at the Invictus Games and is ready for his next challenge.
Mark, a really warm welcome to the Motability Lifestyle Pod. Let's go back to that moment for a second. In 2007, you'd obviously been injured in Afghanistan, and then within 5 months, you learned how to walk with crutches and received a medal for bravery at the Royal Marine ceremony, which is fab. Have you got photos of you in the little outfit? I would love for you to send them by WhatsApp later.
Sort of group.
Honestly. Anyway, I digress. Where did you find the motivation to regain your independence so quickly? Because, you know, I was born with my disability, and I guess that's a very different journey for when you have acquired a disability. And although our journeys may overlap in the sense of I have only in, you know, subsequent years found that pride in my disability. But I guess for you, who has had a glimpse of what it's as a non-disabled person, you know, it is completely different. And I'm always fascinated, inspired in a non-icky way by people like yourself.
So before I answer your question, I mean, I think the same about what you just said. I actually feel quite grateful in a way that I've seen both sides of it. You know, so I had 24 years as a fit, able-bodied man, and then now the rest of my life as a disabled man. And that's not something that I take for granted. I'm very grateful that I've been able to experience that. But in terms of the motivation after the incident, in the Royal Marines, we have very high standards, personally and professionally. We have a very strong ethos and a brotherhood, and we're always looking out for that man to our left and to our right. And we're always trying to live up to the standards that are ingrained in us when we go through that grueling training. When I was injured, obviously, you know, I'm not going to say that I just woke up in hospital and was like, okay, cool, it's happened, let's go, because that's not how it works, right? There were some dark times too. But when I was laying in the hospital bed, I spent 6 weeks in hospital, and I didn't have anything to do but think. And I started to think about those standards and that ethos and that code, I guess, if you like, that we get ingrained into us. And I thought to myself, well, just because I'm now a triple amputee, it doesn't mean that those standards don't apply. Now, my unit were still in Afghanistan when I was in hospital, And I knew that when they came back, we'd had this big fancy medals parade where everyone gets issued their operational service medal and all their friends and family flying from all over the world. And so I just remember thinking while I was going through rehab that I could apply those standards to my recovery. And I wanted to show those people at the unit and those people watching on TV what being a Royal Marines Commander was all about, and that those standards apply to everything that we do personally and professionally. So once I was given the green light to be able to use my prosthetics, I had to be very sensible. This was hard for me because I was very, just get it done, just get it done, just get it done. But because of the wounds I had and the scarring, I had to be very patient. And I couldn't just say, give me the legs, let me go. I had to listen to what the professionals said, calm myself down a little bit and wait. And when that day finally came and they said, okay, you're healed enough now, you can start learning to walk, I had already set up a plan. I knew what the date was going to be of that medals parade. And so I started working that plan. And I'll be honest with you, it was brutal. It was brutal physically. It was brutal mentally. It completely destroyed my ego because I thought I'd just, give me the legs, I'm fit, and I'll go. And I was so wrong. Like, I'm missing both my legs above the knee and my right arm, which was my dominant arm, above the elbow. So for me to do anything, it takes between 300 and 500% more energy than an able-bodied person. It was ugly. The walking was never going to be pretty, but I just wanted to be able to muddle my way through it so I could stand on the sidelines, walk on the parade ground, stand shoulder to shoulder with those men that I fought with, and then receive that medal in the only way, in my mind, that I thought was acceptable. And so that was my motivation right from the very beginning. But when I achieved that, I went home that evening and started reflecting on this tiny journey that I'd been on to that point, and just had this epiphany that goal setting was what I needed to do with my life, because it gave me a focus and it gave me a direction. It was very positive. And so I started setting goals in my personal life and in my professional life, in all the areas that were important to me. So my family, my career, my finances, my health, my fitness, and all those things. When you do that, when the alarm goes off in the morning, if you've got something to get up for and something to aim for and a goal to achieve, it's so much easier than having nothing and just getting up and thinking, what's today going to bring? As long as whatever it is you're aiming for gives you goosebumps and the hairs on the back of your neck stick up, that's a goal worth pursuing. If you go back to why you're doing these things when you're struggling and your morale's low, that's what I found brings me out of it. As well as having phenomenal people around you.
Well, I think you've just hit the nail on the head. I think having that team around you, having like-minded people who are there to support you. What you just said there is so powerful. If you do one thing every day, no matter how big or small, then it will get you towards your end game. But you need to be clear about your end game. But also for balance, even if you were in a wheelchair, me as a full-time wheelchair user, even if you went up in a wheelchair, that is absolutely still valid as well. Because we know that there'll be a lot of people here listening to the podcast who, that would be their lived experience. And that is also valid. But I think the culture working in the military, my dad was an army man as well, is that camaraderie. And I think maybe that's what we're missing in a wider society, is that, no matter who you are, what you look like, what your circumstances, we will support you irrespective. So I think that is so beautiful that you had that in that moment of need, ultimately.
Absolutely.
You mentioned there about, throughout the whole process, your ego, you had to rebuild up yourself. But was there any other really tough moments that you look back on and just think like, wow, like how did I get through that?
So I had the moment that you might all expect in that first 6 weeks in hospital, where the doctor came in and told me that I would be wheelchair bound for life. I hope you don't mind me saying, but I'll be very honest, that made me suicidal. I didn't see a way past that. I was 24 years old, and having this professional come in and tell me that I would rely on people for the rest of my life was very hard for my ego to take. But I did get over it. I guess, destiny stepped in, a couple of days after that doctor came to visit me, an amputee came to visit me who was missing both his legs above the knee, and he was on prosthetics. And so he talked to me about his journey, about the rehabilitation process, about the prosthetics and the things that he was doing. So he was a father. He was still in the army, and he was a Paralympic winter skier. So he'd achieved a lot, and that gave me hope. And that was great. That pulled me out of that depression. And then about a week and a half after that, I left the hospital and was allowed to stay out of the clinical environment for a night. I got rid of all the infections, and they said I was safe. And I went into a flat that was provided for my family, and I saw myself for the first time in a full-length mirror. And I had gone from 6'2" and 16 stone to, I think I'm about 3'5" maybe, without my legs on now. And at that point, I think I was under 9 stone in weight as well, obviously because of the limb loss, but the infections, and my face was very gaunt, and where I had a jacket on, the arm was flapping next to the wheelchair. And I cried all night. I sat with my now wife, Becky, she's my girlfriend at the time, and I cried all night because I just didn't want to live that way. I was too wrapped up in what I thought I was, which was, it was all about my physicality back then, about how strong I could be, how fast I could run, I could do this, could do that. And I didn't see a way forward as this guy now in a wheelchair, missing 3 limbs, having to rely on people. So that was extremely tough. But again, getting good people around me, people that can help me shake it off. Having a good cry is very therapeutic. It's like a purge, and you get rid of all those negative thoughts. You wake up the next day and like, right, that's done, let's go. And then I went back to the hospital, started creating this plan for when I eventually left and went to rehab, and then got to rehab and started implementing it straight away to keep me busy.
That's really refreshing when you said that having a cry is a good cry is just a cathartic process, because men don't talk about that enough.
Yeah.
Do they? Men, as in general, don't talk about crying and how it is actually a helpful process.
Absolutely.
So for you to say that is just
really
refreshing.
I had zero shame, and I'll go on the biggest platform in the world and tell people that if it helps them, because it is so beneficial. And I'm not the biggest, toughest, rowdiest man in the world, but I was a Royal Marines commando, and if I can say that, then I think a lot of people can go out and say it and do it and see the benefits.
And you mentioned, the triumph over adversity, and I guess that can be somewhat problematic for the disability community in the sense of, and it was the late Stella Young, so she was an incredible Australian activist, and she coined the term inspiration porn, and she did an amazing TED talk, and she said, no amount of positivity or smiling at a flight of stairs is gonna mean that I can get up the flight of stairs as a wheelchair user. Are you mindful of that? Because obviously your social media is incredibly positive, it's awash with inspirational messages. How do you get that balance? Because people, like you said, people aren't always in a position to see the light in the dark. And we also don't want to objectify disabled people going, well, if, you're only valid if you, push yourself to your limits. Some people are just happy with their circumstance, and that's okay too. So how do you keep that balance whenever you're on stage or giving these inspirational talks?
I share that exact message. Everybody is on their own individual journey. Everyone has their own individual goals. They have different lifestyles, different things they want to achieve. We don't all have to push ourselves every day to break a point to be valid. And it's very funny actually, because I remember when I was first injured and I was in the wheelchair, and I would meet people for the first time and shake their hand and say hello. And I don't know if this is like most disabled people's experience, but within the first 5 minutes, 90% of these people would say, so when are you training for the Paralympics? And I was like, is this a prerequisite of being disabled? Do we Paralympic stars? And I'm like, I don't want to do the Paralympic. I've got different goals. I want to grow my family. I want to figure out what I'm going to do as a new career. I want to do other things. I don't want to be a Paralympian. And for a while, I get exactly what you're saying. It kind of felt like, well, am I not valid as a disabled person unless I've got a medal at the Paralympics? What's that about? So I ignored it all for nearly 10 years when it came to sport, and just set my own path, focused on what I wanted to do. Because there's a lot more out there. You could be a writer, a TV presenter, radio host, whatever you want to do in this day and age. You know, it's. I was going to say it's a great time to be disabled. I guess it's never. Well, it's the best time because of technology, because of opportunities. Everything, you can go out there and pretty much do what you want to do. So you know, you don't have to be doing a million things all the time. Just find what you're passionate about and go do that.
I've seen so many of your talks, Mark, and you're just such a positive person, like a ray of sunshine. Like, you know, you're always looking at like the positives of life, but you're human. And on the days that you don't feel positive, like how do you bring yourself back up, and what advice do you have to listeners on the days that they might not feel positive?
I just tell myself that it's fine. And I've actually been going through that recently. If you check back a couple of days ago on my social media, I put out a very honest post about how I was so grateful. I've got 3 healthy, happy children, a lovely wife, a roof over my head and food in my belly. I've got all these amazing opportunities that I'm lucky enough to have. But I just felt a little bit bleh for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. But I know it's temporary. I know you can't go through life riding the crest of the wave all the time. You have to come down. And it's taken me a while to get here because I would used to, in the past, get wrapped up in I feel rubbish. This isn't nice. Now my mindset is, this is normal. This is part of the process. You have to experience these lows and go through them to appreciate the heights. Yeah. You know, and this morning I went and visited my eldest daughter and had this exact conversation with her because she's going through some stuff too. And I said, if you just left school, started this business and everything was plain sailing, you'd be bored and you won't understand it or appreciate success when it comes. You have to ride this out and figure ways through it to be able to appreciate the other side of it. So you don't, I do, like I just said, wake up on days and I'm like, ugh, you know what I mean? I don't want to do it, or got too much to do, I'm overwhelmed, or then I'll just chill.
I mean, we were talking about this as well. It's about setting boundaries as well, and just knowing how much you can give. And sometimes it's okay, like you said, just to kick back and just have a you day and not feel like you need to be on and you know, be this positive person. And obviously you are positive by nature, but there are some days that you might not feel positive, and it's fine.
Yeah. And do you share that? Are you quite open about sharing those down moments? And because I really struggle with that as someone who's in the public eye, in the sense of I am innately positive, but I also am human and I have my down days. But sometimes I do feel like when I share the down days, I get influx of people kind of jumping on that negativity bandwagon, and I don't know how helpful or safe that is for my own mental well-being. So how do you first of all, do you share that? And if you do, how do you set boundaries yourself?
I do share, absolutely. I think it's important to. I think the problem with social media is everyone wants to share the highs and, you know, make out that they've got this great life and everything's rosy all the time. And that doesn't help other people, because other people look at that and be like, why have they got it so easy? Why are they so successful? They never have bad days. So I absolutely do share the down times, but it is hard to manage, you know, when you talk about boundaries, because of social media, you are contactable everywhere. And I do have a lot of emails, DMs across all the platforms from people who are struggling, particularly people who are either new amputees or scheduled for an amputation. In fact, this morning, I had to DM a guy and say, he asked me if I could mentor him. His amputation is booked in. Could I mentor him through the process? And listen, I will help you where I can, but my time is very limited. I have a family. I have a career. I will help you where I can. That's the boundary. And the thing is as well, I think what I've learned over the years is if you help people too much, it can have detrimental effects. You can guide them and coach them, but they have to do the work. So it's difficult. It's taken me, I've been doing it on social media for 15 years now. So it's taken me this long to learn to set some boundaries, but we're getting.
I'm still really rubbish.
It will come.
Can you help me, please? So let's just say that you are, I would say, an overachiever. Is that correct? Because you are, of course, an amazing athlete, and you won gold at the Invictus Games, and you are a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu pro, and you also do a smidge of open water swimming. Have I missed anything else? Are you a whiz in the kitchen or? No. Oh, okay, cool. Slightly intimidated there, but you reined it back in. clearly keeping active is a really big part of your life. So what is it about physical sport that kind of, is important to you? Is it the regime? Is it the fact that you can set goals, or is it just for the sheer fun of it?
I just think it's a very important part of all of our lifestyles. There's no doubt in my mind, and I'm not a doctor, but there's no doubt in my mind that the link between physical health and mental health, it's linked. When I work out, I feel better physically, but I also feel better mentally. Clearer, more motivated. It keeps me on track. And you build a good community of people as well around you. When you go and do specific sports, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community is probably the closest that I found to the military community. And when you bear in mind, we're rolling around trying to choke each other unconscious and each other's limbs off. But as soon as we're finished, we're sharing a coffee together and talking about life and sharing our problems. It's actually I guess, unofficial form of therapy. But it's always been a huge part of my life since I was about 13 years old, just physical activity and, feeling like I've left it all out there. And, once you work out and you put a good session, everything else seems easy.
I love that because I think, conventional therapy can be costly for starters. I think it can take a specific person to go and speak to a stranger so openly. So I think that's that. I've never thought of sport like that you have that chit chat afterwards. Yeah. And I love that. So anyone's listening, maybe that might be an avenue to explore if you do feel isolated or ostracized. Go and join a club. It doesn't have to be sport, just join a club. Yeah. Be part of a community.
And Mark, I know you're a Motability scheme customer.
I am.
And I just wanted to ask, how has the scheme enabled you to, do these sports and just go on all these motivational, when you go and speak and talk and host workshops, how does the scheme enable you to do that?
I mean, having the vehicle just gives me independence. And I often think about this. I often sit there and, it's a Friday now, so I'll review my week in my mind while I'm just chilling out later. And I'll sit there and think, how could I do this if I had to rely on someone else to constantly take me places? I couldn't go swimming. Well, I mean, I could, but it would be a lot harder. Taking myself to the gym daily. The car and what the scheme provides gives me that independence to go out and live the life that I want to live. I'm not restricted in any way. And I travel the country as a speaker. It's given me the ability to have a career after my injuries. Again, that would be very difficult. There's public transport, absolutely, but I, as an individual, prefer the car because it just gives me, it's the ultimate level of freedom for me. I can go where I want, do what I want, whenever I want, however I want, within the speed limit.
Of course. Of course.
Get that one in there quickly. Now, I'm pretty sure that you've got lots of fabulous things up your sleeve. So can you give us a bit of a taster, a bit of a tease as to what might be coming up for you next?
Yeah, so I'm trying to write my second book now. Well, I'm trying to write two books, actually. One is going to be a complete autobiography, starting from when I was a kid, getting bullied and finding fitness through to current day. Then I'm writing one focused on mindset. And like we've talked about, it's going to be about that's very honest and very raw. I'm going to talk about the crying and going to therapy and the benefits of sport and how I built my mind up during Royal Marine training, during recovery and all that kind of stuff. I'm trying to get more into the media world as a presenter, TV, radio, podcast and that kind of stuff. And in November, myself and a team of 10 para-athletes are going out to Abu Dhabi to compete in the World Para Jiu-Jitsu Championships. So hopefully by Christmas, I might be able to say that I'm Para Jiu-Jitsu World Champion. Fingers crossed.
That would be amazing. Yeah, fingers crossed. Good luck.
Thanks.
Mark, half an hour is not enough. No. But before you go, we have a tradition going on where our previous guests ask our next guest a question. So our previous guest had a question for you, which is, what is your favourite thing about your disability? What do you love about your disability?
I love the fact that I never have to have a knee replacement when I get older. No, do you know what? So some of the speaking that I do is in schools and kids are fascinated. And I have a thing in my prosthetic legs called a rotator in the knee. and it means that I can basically take from my knee down, do my shin and foot, and spin the thing 360. Or like when an assembly of kids will come in, I'll have both my legs with my feet facing up with like a book on them.
No, you don't.
I do, yeah.
I bet they love that.
Just an instant icebreaker because there's no awkwardness.
Yeah.
They're all like laughing and they're like, "That's so cool." And then instantly you've got rapport with all of them, and then you go into telling your story or whatever it is you're there to do, and it's amazing. And you think if you can take something which once in my life I thought was so terrible and use it to be so empowering, and then you've cracked the code. If you can bring joy to other people through it, you've cracked the code.
What a beautiful sentiment to end on. Honestly, Mark, thank you so much for your time today. It's been brilliant. Very positive. Yes. I feel uplifted.
I feel very uplifted. It is our final show of season 1, but if I'm not overreaching, we may have a season 2. So in that eventuality, have you got a question for our next guest on season 2? So it could be something as off the wall as what is your favourite ice cream, or something a little bit more meaningful and philosophical.
Okay, so I'm going to assume that if the next guest was born with a disability or acquired it later in life, that they didn't just wake up one day and be super positive, right? There was a turning point. So my question is, where was the turning point? Was it a book, a person, a seminar, a TV show? What was that one thing where the light bulb went off and you're like, okay, we're good to go now?
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, ladies.
Brilliant. Sam, for the last time this season.
I'm going to do something extra. It's culture women. It's culture women. Culture women. Oh, I don't know where I'm going with this. Why am I still single?
You're going to miss that, Matt, aren't you?
I am, yeah.
What are we talking about today?
Today, we are talking about how to drive safely in the winter months.
It's approaching winter.
It is. It's very important because obviously at the moment in a lot of places there are delays with car repairs. So if you do get in an accident, it can mean people are without their car for extended periods, which is not ideal. And often, obviously, even though there's courtesy cars, they're not always perfect, or they might not have the adaptations you need or whatever. So yeah, obviously anything we can do to help avoid an accident is great. So I'm going to jump in and say the first thing to do, so if the weather's rubbish, if it's hammering with rain, if it's snowy, if it's icy, or even it's just really cold, because being very cold can drastically reduce your grip. The most important thing is to give yourself time on a journey. Give yourself time, because you're going to go out, the windows are all going to be frozen, or there's going to be snow on the car that you've got to get rid of. So, you've got to have time for the car to defrost and to demist the windows and all that sort of thing. And, it is a legal requirement for your windscreen to be clear. You see people trying to look through like some saucer-shaped hole that they've managed to. And yeah, that's not
I don't know why I love it. It's not funny.
I know. Why are we always in a rush? I mean, just wait for the windscreen to defrost.
Absolutely. You just got to give yourself that bit of extra time, and it takes the stress out of your journey. And also your journey's, even ignoring that beginning prep bit, your journey's going to take longer because people are going to be driving slower. There's likely to be accidents.
Yes.
And also, if the conditions are that bad, just think, do you need to go out today, or is it better to go another day?
I'm happy to stay at home from like November to January.
Hibernate.
Where's Sam? I'm at home.
And of course, as well, when you do set off, stick to main roads, because more for if it's snowy or icy, because the main roads will have either been gritted or there will have already been cars that have gone and kind of cleared it up a bit, whereas back roads and rural roads are likely to be a bit more treacherous. The next thing is make sure your car's in is roadworthy. That shouldn't be a problem on the Motability scheme because most of the cars will be new. But the thing that I can't stress enough in terms of looking after your car is just make sure your tyres are in good condition, because it's the only part of your car that actually connects the car to the road. It is so important. And the amount of people who either want to cheap out on tyres or don't actually check that their tyres have got any tread on them and that kind of thing.
I was about to say tread. I was like,
tread.
I know the lingo.
There you go, tread. Yeah, so I mean, if anyone wants to check, the minimum legal tread depth is 1.6 millimetres, but they advise 3 millimetres as a minimum. You can sort of check that with the edge of a 20p piece, actually, if you put that's the way. You can get proper gadgets to check it. Or you can just take your car in for a health check.
I was going to say, I won't be doing that.
But yeah, it is really important that your tyres are in good condition and that the pressures are correct.
Yes.
Obviously, that will get done at a service or whatnot, but you can check them yourself. And if you're not sure what pressure your tyres need to be at, it will be in your vehicle handbook, or most cars actually have it on like a sticker that's somewhere around the driver's door when the door's open, so you can see what they should be. The other thing is make sure your wipers are working and you've got washer fluid, because if it is snowing and sometimes it's just, you've got to be able to see out your windscreen. So that's an important one. Check that your lights are working. It's an annoying one because usually you need a second person to walk around the car with you, but especially rear lights, fog lights, because if people coming from behind can't see you and it's foggy and you're driving much slower than they are, it's going to be a big problem. Other than that, if you're heading out on a long journey, just make sure you've got a decent amount of fuel, or if you've got an electric car, make sure you've got a decent amount of charge before you set off, because if you do get stuck in a long jam, the last thing you need is the added stress of the fuel light being on or having no more miles and thinking, yeah, there you go. Yeah, always be prepared.
Always be. What about gloves though? Because I'm assuming, like for me, I've got quite bad dexterity, so my joints can get quite sore in winter. So would you recommend having some leather gloves? Will they detract from grip, or is that advisable?
No, you can get driving gloves. You can get gloves that are for driving that will give you grip on the steering wheel. But yeah, absolutely, that is important. And I'd maybe recommend looking at a car with a heated steering wheel as well, if you can.
Good idea.
They're not super common, but there are some cars on the scheme that have them. So yeah, absolutely. Driving gloves are fine. It's a good idea. And lastly, on terms of just preparation with the car, it's not a bad idea to keep it feels a bit extreme, but it's not a bad idea to keep like a winter safety kit with you that has things like a warning triangle in case you break down, a blanket.
Next to my kill kit. Is that what it is?
Next to it. Is this what the actual? Is this what you were really talking about with the driving gloves?
Yeah. The driving gloves are doubling up, basically.
To mask your fingerprints, Okay. Yeah, so stuff like that, food, water, just stuff that you might need if you break down at the side of the road. Yeah, torch, exactly. That sort of thing. And then the main thing to do once you get going is actually to think about your driving. So for one thing, stopping distances is the biggest thing in poor weather, because visibility is reduced, so you take longer to see hazards anyway, so reaction times are longer, but it takes the car a lot longer to stop, and it will take the car much longer to stop than people think it will in bad conditions. So in heavy rain, you're generally looking at least double the stopping distance you would have in the dry. Now, if you think if your stopping distance is 100 meters, then suddenly 200 meters is a lot more than that. It's quite a big distance. So do keep your distance from the car in front. If it's snowy or icy out, that stopping distance increases exponentially. You can be looking at up to 10 times the stopping distance in snow or ice.
Black ice terrifies me.
Yeah.
Like I mean, like that is just something that just sends shivers up my spine.
Yeah, absolutely. It is scary. And the thing is, when you say sort of 10 times the distance, I know it does sound a lot anyway, but if you imagine it, say 30 miles an hour, which is a pretty slow speed, relatively speaking, you're looking at potentially 200 meters to stop at that speed. Now, 200 meters, if you're having trouble visualizing that, is about the length of 2 football fields.
Wow.
So if you imagine a 30 mile an hour road in a residential area where you drive, and then imagine that distance, how long you need to potentially stop. It's a really long way. Yeah. So that is the main thing. And moving away from ice, you mentioned black ice. The kind of rain equivalent of that, I guess, is sometimes there's deep standing water that you're not aware of. Wow. And if you hit that at speed, you can aquaplane, which is where... So your car, your tyres can sort of break contact with the road because there's too much water for the tyres to displace. Yeah. And then you end up, you're sort of just skating on water effectively. So just be mindful, if you see a lot of standing water in the road, just be careful that could happen.
What do you do, drive around or just drive slowly?
I would ideally, if you see it in time, slow down, and if you can avoid it, great. If not, just slow down so that when you go through it. If you do hit it, so generally the rule is if you hit something, so whether that's sort of ice or sort of standing water, if the car starts to sort of skid, start going sideways, you sort of steer into.
Okay. I was going to say, yes, what do? You obviously don't go, and you take your hands off the wheel.
This is the thing, it is difficult because you can give this advice, but a lot of people in the heat of the moment who aren't used to that, they will just panic.
Absolutely.
But if you can, so the important things to do are, don't do anything like really sudden, like don't suddenly yank the steering wheel, don't slam on the brakes, don't do anything. It's all about being gentle with cars. Okay. So if, for example, your car sort of points, as if it starts pointing to the left, so the back of the car is sliding out to the right and the front of the car starts pointing to the left, you want to steer to the right. So, so you're almost steering in the direction that you want the car to be travelling, if that makes sense.
Okay. I'm totally going to wear a when I drive all the time. I'm going to be really, really beautiful. So to wrap up today's section, I really want to end on a high. What gadget? Tell me, what have you got for it? Better be a cracker.
Right. You might be disappointed, but maybe you won't, because it's one that you could do with at the moment, Sam, if you were driving. It's a sun visor tissue dispenser. So you could get a little thing that attaches to the sun visor and has tissues in it for you. Because when you're driving, right, if you sneeze and you're on a motorway, and let's say you need a
Yeah,
tissue.
dribble.
That is really not an ideal scenario to be in when you're dry.
Have you got a long tongue like this? Your tongue out like this? A little bit.
Because, you know, especially when we're coming up to winter, if you've got a cold
Absolutely.
or
As
hay
long as
fever.
just one comes out, because you know how annoying it's
know.
when
Oh,
you
yeah,
go
that
for
would be,
tissue
yeah.
and then loads come out. That's very annoying.
Yeah,
as
But
long
also,
as
I've
one
got
comes
short
out.
arms, so I don't even know whether, like, to be quite
That'll
honest
reach.
with you.
That's a good
It's
point,
like,
actually.
I just need a robotic arm to do everything for me while I'm driving. You know what? Mop my brow.
Maybe
put
I'll-
my glasses on.
Maybe I'll have a look into robot arms for
Please
the next
do.
episode.
Please do.
Never know.
Oh.
Thank you, Matt,
You're
for
more
our
than welcome.
final car chat of the
Thanks
season.
for having me.
It's been brilliant.
Thank you.
Been a pleasure. Really
Season
enjoyed it.
2, season 2.
And that's it for this season of the Motability Lifestyle Pod. We really hope you've enjoyed the ride. Thank you to our in-house specialist, Matt Lizzymore, and our guest, Mark Ormrod. Thank you to our producer, Jolene Goffin at Rethink Audio, and our editorial assistant, Lucy Rhodes at Wonderly.
If you like this episode, follow us, tell all your friends, and please leave us a review. If you want to tell us what you thought, or if there's something you'd like to hear, come and say hello on Instagram. For some behind the scenes content, follow us on TikTok and watch the full video on YouTube. And I'd like to add that there's a BSL version and a captioned version. You can find us on Motability_lifestyle_mag. Finally, if you want more information about Motability Scheme, go to motability.co.uk, or if you want to learn more about Motability Foundation, visit motability.org.uk. And that's it. I'm Sophie Marie Odom.
Oh, and I'm Samantha Rank.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.